Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Ingles Furman Radio Network preview. As our friend Daniel Hooker likes to say, it is the Battle for Purple Supremacy. Furman going on the road at Western Carolina in Southern Conference play this week. Hi, everybody. I am Dan Scott. It is great to have you with us. Hope that everything has gone well for you this week. This should be an entertaining matchup, and the things that David Cobb and Tom Van Hoy and I are going to be kind of paying attention to this week is what we're going to talk about over the next few minutes here. But to kind of set the scene for you, Furman coming off of the win here at Paladins Stadium over ETSU last time out, 31-22, now 4-1 overall, 2-0 in the Southern Conference. And Western Carolina, they're 3-3. They're also 2-0 in league play, and they won a close one at Wofford last Saturday, 23-21, behind an incredible performance from Taryn Dickens. We're going to talk about that coming up in just a bit. But these two teams, as you know, longtime conference foes, have met more than a handful of times over the years, and taking this because of all the info from the Western Carolina notes package. Furman leads the all-time series 36-14-2, including 17 wins, 7 losses, and a tie in Cullowhee. And in recent years, of course, the Paladins have gone up there and have played very well. Furman has won 24 of the last 30 head-to-head meetings. 3 of the last 4 have been very high-scoring affairs. The 2 times ago up in Cullowhee, Western Carolina a 43-42 win. In 2022, the Paladins winning 47-40, and then last year it was a 52-20 victory for Western Carolina here at Paladin Stadium, a game that I know still sticks in the craw of Furman folks because of what was going on at the end of the game. But that's last year. This is 2025, and the Paladins looking to continue what has been a very, very good start to the season. Only the last play overtime loss to Presbyterian College has Furman from being undefeated right now. The flip side of that is, and Clay Hendricks will point this out, you're probably 3 or 4 plays away from maybe being a one-win football team. And as we talked during the broadcast on Saturday in the postgame, you certainly don't want to do this team the injustice of, at this juncture, especially comparing it to 2022 or even more so 2023's team, because those teams were incredible for a number of reasons. But you're starting to get that feel with the way this team has learned to win close games, what they're doing along the defensive line, especially Joshua Stone King. I mean, think about this. In 5 games, Stone King, the redshirt sophomore, has 9.5 sacks and 13.5 tackles for loss. That is a good season. That's an all-conference season worth of those numbers. He's done it in 5 games. And what's been even more impressive over the last couple of games is that teams, while they are doing what they can to try and account for him, they've not been able to just strictly double-team him and try to take him away, because Furman's been able to get pressure from other places. So it's been interesting to watch this defense develop. It's been interesting over the last couple of games to watch how the back end has performed now that just about everybody is healthy and where they're supposed to be. And Furman's going to need everything that it can get against this Western Carolina offense this week, particularly against a young man by the name of Taryn Dickens. If you did not hear last week, and I don't know how you could have missed this, but he set an NCAA record at Wofford, completing 46 consecutive passes to start the game. He ended up completing 53 on the game, but 46 straight, and yet they only won by a score of 23-21. I asked the question, how does that happen? How do you put up those kind of numbers and only score 23 points? Well, I got an answer. 4 sacks, 2 fourth down conversion attempt in Wofford territory that went wrong. They did not convert. And then they also just Wofford dropping 7 usually and sometimes as many as 9 in coverage. It was a lot of short passes, a lot of what you would call the dink and dunk passes. They will take shots down the field. There's no question about it. But that was Wofford's game plan. We'll see how Furman plays them. But you look at Dickens' numbers in 3 games this season, 1,387 passing yards. In 12 games, he's 6-1 as a starting quarterback over 3 years. And 2,942 yards is already tied for 9th in Western Carolina history as far as his ability to throw the football. When we start looking at the team comparison and where both teams rank nationally in FCS, everything from scoring offense and defense all the way down through fourth down conversion rates. The thing that kind of jumps off the page and what you expect in this matchup, if you look at total offense rank and total defense rank, just about the midpoint of your screen, Furman total offense is 47th in the nation at FCS level with 373.6 yards per game. And Western Carolina, Kerwin Bell's offense, no surprise, 480 yards. That's 10th best at the FCS level. Defensively, the Catamounts give up 479.5 yards per game. That's 117th, while Furman's defense, 387.2 yards. That is 68th. And when you look at scoring defense, Furman's defense is top 40, allowing 23.8 points per game, which is 38th, while the Catamounts are giving up 37 points per game, which is 103rd. Their scoring offense is 18th in the country. Furman's is 33rd. You have to remember, too, that Western played its first 3 games without Teron Dickens at quarterback. So he has only played in 3 of their 6 games. They have won all 3 of those games, including the first 2 games inside Southern Conference play. When you start looking at some of their other numbers, they don't run the ball a lot. But when they do, they are fairly successful. Patrick Boyd is their leading rusher, averaging 5.5 yards per carry, 260 yards net gain, a touchdown, and 70 of those yards came on 1 run. Dickens is their second leading rusher at 121 total yards, 3.7 yards a carry. And, of course, you remember with quarterbacks, the sacks come off of the rushing total at the collegiate level. Dickens has not thrown an interception in 3 games. He is 114 out of 142. That's an 80% completion rate. 13 touchdowns with a long of 64, and his receivers that he will go for, they have multiple players with double-digit receptions. And when I mean multiple, 3, 6, 9 of them with at least 10 receptions or more. James Tyre has 40 catches for 428 yards and 6 touchdowns. He is their leading receiver in all of those categories. Other names to watch: Malik Knight, 28 catches, 354 yards and a touchdown. And Painter Richards Baker, 16 catches, 223 yards and 2 touchdowns. But 9 receivers with double-digit catches for Western Carolina. For Furman, Trey Hedden has been on a bit of a roll here of late. Over the last 3 games, 125 pass attempts and only 1 interception, and that came last week against ETSU on what looked like a miscommunication between he and one of his receivers. But Trey, who has played all 5 games, is completing 72.2% of his passes, 1,386 yards, 8 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. We've talked about the difference that he has made from last year to this year. True freshman, true sophomore, his decision-making, his footwork, it's all been exponentially better, and you're seeing the results. And even without Evan James last week, Furman put up 500 yards of total offense. No Evan James, no Jackson Pryor in the passing game. James still the team's leading receiver with 379 yards on 32 catches and a pair of touchdowns. But we are seeing the emergence of Jakeith Hamilton, who now has 25 catches, 305 yards, and a team-best 4 touchdown receptions. And how about Ethan Harris returning to the lineup in a big way? He had 11 catches last week. He has 15 on the season for 128 yards, and his long is 20. But when he and Jakeith Hamilton both had 11 receptions last week, in the long history of Furman football, it's the first time in school history they've had 2 receivers with double-digit receptions in the same game. So while everybody focuses on the Furman offense or the Western Carolina offense versus the Furman defense, which I think is a very, very good thing to follow, Furman's offense against Western Carolina's defense is going to be, I think, equally as intriguing to watch. I expect another high-scoring game. Whichever defense can make a play, can Furman generate the kind of pressure on Teron Dickens that we have seen the Paladins be able to do over really the entire season, but especially in the last couple of weeks, and keep him contained in the pocket. One of the things that Clay Hendricks talked about was going back to the Wofford game and watching that film, so many of the pass plays were snap and the ball's out immediately, where you're not going to get to the quarterback. So what do you do if you're defensive line? Well, you're trying to get pressure, but you're getting your hands up, trying to knock passes down, and the linebackers, the secondary, they are all going to be coached on what to do in that situation. A large part of their passing game is getting it to receivers in space and letting them make moves. They will take shots down the field, but Clay telling us in the press conference on Tuesday, he thinks he's seen a little bit of a difference philosophically in what they've been doing as far as what we mentioned a moment ago, getting it to receivers in space on short passes and letting them go. Bottom line is, this is a Kerwin Bell offense. You've got to expect everything. You've got to expect short passes, long passes, intermediate passes, double passes, trick plays, going for it on fourth down in their own territory. Nothing he does should come as a surprise for Dwayne Vaughn and the Furman defense. So you know that this is going to be and has been a challenging week as they game plan that. Let's take a look at the Southern Conference standings heading into play today. There are currently 3 teams still without a conference loss. Mercer sitting there at 4-0, then Furman and Western at 2-0. So one of the purple-clad teams is going to take its first conference loss this season. Mercer is playing out of conference at Princeton this week. Then you see the Citadel sitting there at 2-1, Chattanooga 1-1, VMI, ETSU, Wofford, and Samford all looking for their first conference wins of the season, and Wofford and Samford looking for their first wins overall this season. And remember, Furman goes to Wofford next week. The schedule for this week, we mentioned Mercer's at Princeton. That is a noon kick. Wofford out of conference as well, hosting Norfolk State. That's a 1:30 kick. Citadel out of conference against Valdosta State at 2 p.m. down at Johnson Haygood in Charleston. There's Furman at Western at 2:30, and then VMI will be at ETSU at 3:30 p.m. So it is going to be another fun weekend of Southern Conference football. It is going to be, you say these things, and many times the opposite happens. I don't think that's going to be the case. I expect this to be a high-scoring affair in the mountains of western North Carolina this week. We'll find out. It's going to be a great challenge, really, for both defenses, and we'll see which one can come out on top. That is going to do it for this week's Ingles Furman Radio Network preview. We will remind you that the Pepsi Countdown to Kickoff will begin on the Fan Upstate at 1 p.m., and the kick in the mountains is at 2:30. It'll be on ESPN+. Sorry, Daniel Hooker, I got to tell folks this. You can watch it, but turn it down and listen to our radio broadcast. Tom and David and I are excited to be back at it again, and we'll talk to you from Cullowhee on Saturday. Until then, for all of us at Furman, I'm Dan Scott saying God bless you, and so long, everybody.